because I can, oh, wow. That is not pleasant. Sorry. Oh, wow. Turn. mm.
Can you hear me?
Just a second. I lost my voice teaching people how to lockpick yesterday. So if I'm hard to understand, I'm sorry. And if it annoys you that I'm sucking on a halls the entire time, I'm sorry for that. But you're just going to have to get over it. I'm Keenan Fessler. And today we are going to talk about kind of the evolution of security in safes, particularly those that you manipulate open with combinations, and we're going to see how they changed and how we actually attack them at the same time. Hopefully we have enough time to go through all of that. And if you have questions at any moment, I'm not going to do like a whole we wait to the end for a Q&A. I like to answer them as they're there because then I'll have the things out to show you, and it'll be relevant. We good? No? He's good. I'll take that as a yes. Okay. So this little guy here is your typical like residential, I bought it at Costco, Sam's Club, or Lowe's, or wherever, lock. It's in a safe, like a, what is the name of that company that I really hate? Sentry Safe. This is actually a Sentry Safe lock. It was the very first lock I ever cracked. And the way to start understanding how to start cracking safes is to look at this potential really low technology version. So back originally, who's seen like a movie where somebody has like a stethoscope and they're like listening to it and they're like on a train and they're like, we're gonna get the gold bars? They were kind of in this configuration. So the parts that we're gonna talk about on this one right here is this guy here is what's connected. Ooh, I have to point with my finger, not my whole hand. This guy right here is what's connected to the bolt. That's what locks the safe closed or open. As you can see right now, it can't go anywhere because of those wheels. So the thing that's pushing into the wheels is called the fence. So I'm going to be using these words a lot, so if you forget, just remind me to tell you what it is again. So you have the fence. Here, you have the wheel pack. The wheel pack is usually made between 3 to 4 wheels, but you can make it as big or as small as you want to. It just makes dialing it a lot more complicated. On the wheel, you're going to see, especially on this one because it's the one you can see, different notches. There are 2 that are shallow and 1 that is very deep. Those are called gates. The shallow ones are called false gates. They weren't in the original safe designs. Then you have the deep one, which is the true gate. And that was kind of how initially the idea worked. The idea would be that you would turn these all in such a fashion that you would align the larger gates together, like this guy right here. And when you tried to move the bolt, it would allow it to move, safe would open. It's pretty simple. So what happened is people who started to understand how these things worked started to see security vulnerabilities or vulnerabilities in the engineering, and this is kind of what we do every day in security, is we learn how something works, we see a vulnerability or something that you can take advantage of to make it do something or tell you something that you shouldn't know or do. And so we're gonna look at how you start doing it with this guy right here. So when you're going to start going after a safe, it's important that you know what mechanics are underneath it. An easy way is to know how it's listed under the underwriter's laboratory. This one is not, because it carries no real benefit. It's pretty pointless. If you can, for those of you that aren't watching this stream or seeing my webcam, these 2 that you can see here are examples of the groups that they have. This one's called a group 2. And so it's called a group 2 because how long it can withstand professional manipulation. And this one's called a group 1. Technically, it's a group 1R. And we'll go over why there's a difference between R and the normal one when I open that one up. So if you know which one it is, you have to attack it a different way. So the original way that they would attack it, super simple. So what they would do is, because you get to control when the lever goes forward, well, the fence goes forward and touches the wheel pack, you can start learning stuff pretty instantly as you start spinning the dial. So I'm going to keep this, why is it not showing what I'm doing now? Oh, you've got to be kidding me. This was such a horrible idea. Okay, so when it says that, you yell at me. I'll move the mouse to resume. Okay, so as you can see, the fence is now touching the wheels. This is the first vulnerability that all safes have. Every single one of them, from here all the way up to group 1. It's the fact that we can't make a perfectly circular object. And if we did, it wouldn't be cost effective to then make it, mass produce it. So they try as best as they can. So unless you want to spend thousands upon thousands of dollars for one lock, they're imperfect. This one actually is imperfect on purpose, which is really weird. The first wheel is actually larger than the second wheel, the second and third on purpose. Actually, I should probably tell you how to number them. That would be a good idea. So there's 2 ways that people will number wheels. They either number by the number that it contains or the number that it encodes, or how far it comes from this end, the controlling wheel. So I always count the controlling wheel, which is this one right here that's moving all by itself. That's wheel number 1. When you spin on these wheels, and we're going to take apart a lock a little bit later so you can see the next smaller parts, there's just little contact points that will touch each other in between the wheels. And so as you turn, you will catch one, and I just caught one, just barely, and you can kind of tell that the second wheel is turning. Let me see if I can turn it that way. Cool. So there's this guy, he's turning. I'm going to catch a contact point right there, and now there's 2 turning. I'm going to catch another one, just a second, probably about right. Oh, maybe not. There. So now I've got all 3 turning. And this is the second part of what makes safes possible to crack, is that you can tell while you're spinning it which wheel is spinning. And so then you can use the 2 things, that there is an imperfect wheel, or they're all imperfect, and that you control which one is spinning in order to get it to tell you the combination that it has. So with this guy here, if you go and you look on like KSL or eBay or Amazon or Craigslist, any type of classified thing, you'll probably see a lot of people selling these, and they try to sell them for the same price that they buy them, and they're not worth the price that you pay for them originally anyway. So if you can get a hold of one of these, they're pretty good practice to get the concept down. So back in the first safes, what they found out they could do, since they could control when the fence would touch the wheel pack, they can turn it, and it stays in constant connection. So if you notice, that just locked up. Can you tell on the picture, I can't see the picture really well, why it locked up? That false gate. So when I hit that, I start going, okay, have I learned anything right now? Yeah, I've learned that on my dial, and I don't know how I'm going to show you the dial. I'll just show you the dial by doing this. Can you see the dial and the numbers? Okay. So I've learned that on my dial, I've got a spread right here that means whatever wheel was turning has a divot in it somewhere, a gate. So I actually write that down, and I write down the range. Usually it's the middle of that range that would be a correct combination number. So I write that down. Now, does anybody know if I could tell already, without seeing the lock, which wheel that was on? What do you think? Yeah, it is the one I'm turning. That is completely true. But how do I know which one was turning? Yep, exactly. He already knows how to do this because he said pick up. So I knew it was what I would call the first wheel because that's always the first wheel that moves, always. And I hadn't felt a pickup of another wheel. So what I'm doing right now is I'm investigating that first wheel for any information it will give me. And normally you don't do this with other types of locks, but this one is the faster way to do it. So I'm going, I've got one there, and I check how wide it is, write it down. And then I keep going, and there's that one there. And this one's way wider by like 4 numbers. I write that down, and just a hint, that's the real gate, and I don't have to see the picture. Because SentrySafe wants you to be happy with their locks. And it, yeah, right? What they want is the user to be happy. So what they do, which is really dumb, is their false gates are really straight and they're really narrow. But their actual gates are really wide and the corners are tapered. And if you look at the gate, its corners are rounded. That way, if you're close enough, you'll actually move the wheel pack a little bit when you try to open it up, meaning that there's fewer times that you set the combination and you're just slightly off that it won't open. So they want it to open. And I want it to open too. Thank you. In all defense, though, this setup was my wife's idea. I think she might be here by now. I can't tell. I have my glasses on. Okay, so now, honestly, just for the sake of time, I know that that right there is the real gate, and I know that there's going to be a number there. The fun thing about your wheels, if you number it like I do, where you come from whatever's driving back towards the last wheel that will move, 1 to 3, is that the number that it is in the combination is backwards. So I know where the gate is on wheel 1. It's somewhere between 74 and 79. And pretty much any of those numbers in between will actually work because it's a century safe. So I know that the third number I have is in that range. So I write that down. So now the next thing I can do is actually start trying to figure out the next number. And so what I'll do is, like he said, I'll do a pickup, which means I'm going to turn this slowly. And when you do a pickup on harder locks, the best way to do it is to do it lightly and almost so then your fingers are barely gripping the dial. Because when you hit that pickup, like right there, I can't turn the dial anymore. For those of you that only can see my webcam, I'm sorry, because I don't want to keep flipping this right now. So I can't turn the dial anymore, which means I know I just picked one up. I know that I'm now controlling wheels 1 and 2. So what I can do is I can end up moving wheel 2, and I'll usually, on century safes, move it by an increment of 5. And it's because what we were talking about with those really deep, wide gates. So technically, if you think about it, every combination with a century safe is really a range of 5 numbers, a range of 5 numbers, and a range of 5 numbers that will open it. So when I skip to the next part, so I'm picking up at about 25, and I know there wasn't a gate there. Then I'm going to move all the way to 20. So I just moved the second wheel 5 numbers. And I know where the other gate is on wheel 1, and I know that's all I'm going to move. Oh, did I really just find the actual gate? Oh, the demo gods are happy with me today. So now, what I will do, the first one was easy. I can just tell when I get into a depth and a gate. But if you notice here, I can't check that anymore because the only wheel that I can control right now is the first wheel. Why can't you just do it all the time, photo booth? So this is why I don't like Macs sometimes, because nothing like its own software will work. Oh, my goodness, you little piece of... you want to stand here and just like keep moving my mouse? I'll tell if you're messing around with my stuff. If it changes, you click or move the mouse. AV, you gotta love AV. Okay, so how we figure it out in the hard part, and I can't really show you because I broke the key on this one. So I'm gonna turn this around. Right here where that hole is, normally there's a key. And that would be akin to like the lever or the wheel that you see on like bank vaults in the old movies. And that's what controls the fence. At this point, the difference that I have to be able to tell is the difference of the depth that the gate traveled. Now, I'm cheap, so what I normally do on things like the Century Safe is you'll have a lever right here. I will tape a barbecue skewer to the lever, so it's sitting really up in this air area, and I'll put a piece of paper there, and when I know my first set, which I will check where I know I don't have anything on the wheels, I will make a mark, and that's like my home base. Then as I find other things, like that gate, or that first gate, I can also check how deep it went, because it moves. I'll do the same thing on the second. So right now, I would have seen that it got deeper, because I know it does, because I've opened the safe a lot. So that one goes in, and you'll see it go deeper and deeper and deeper. And so then you just pick up wheels, and you go. Happily, with this safe, when I did it, let's see, it actually goes in height of 1, 2, and 3. So they touch in that order. That's not always how it goes. So then you kind of, what you'll end up doing, sorry. So what you'll end up doing is when you get to the second wheel and you work your way around, if you're not seeing numbers or you're not seeing any type of change, that means that the second wheel is not the next wheel being touched by the fence. Does that all make sense? Yeah. So that means you're on the third wheel. And then you've got to roll all the way to the third wheel. So you got to pick up all the way there, move it 5, and then go back to where you know your gate is on wheel 1. And then when you need to move it, go back, move it 5. It's really fun, isn't it? Mister, I've done this before. Oh, he's sleeping. He's so kind. So this is the basic fundamental of how safe locks work. Everybody feel like they understand this. Because when we go on to the next on how they evolved, it's going to get a little weirder. Okay, so really quick. Fence, wheel pack, wheels. Between the wheels are contacts. I shouldn't really say contact point, because we're going to use that for something else. And you have your dial. That's pretty much how this works. So now we're going to go over how they changed it. Because obviously, it wasn't working very well, especially since Hollywood thought that everyone could break into a safe, and they could at the time. So they started making modifications, and the Group 2 is kind of the first like official safe lock that I would ever want on anything. Okay. So the first thing that they did is they changed the fence. So this here's the fence. That's the part that falls into the wheels. And it has a little nose on it. Now I broke my cam, so I'm going to have to show you a cam on another one in a second. Now as you can see, there's your wheel pack. Your fence is connected to this bolt. And then as you spin, you need to make it so the gates line up with that little protrusion right there. Everybody kind of following in their heads? I'm a real visual learner, so I kind of imagine everything that way. So if you're not and you need to ask a question, raise your hand. So that sits there. But the main problem with safes was the fact that they are too noisy in what they tell you. You know, they're kind of chatty. And what they do is they end up riding that wheel pack, and that's how you start finding gates. So the first thing that they decided to do is get rid of that, because that's what you do in security. You find a large vulnerability, and you get rid of it, or you patch it or something. Oh, I just dropped a whole bunch of wheels. Okay. This golden piece right here is called the cam. And the cam was their first line of defense in making a safe stronger. So what you'll see is that thing that I called the nose, this guy right here at the top, well at the bottom, that's riding the cam. And while it rides the cam, the fence cannot ride the wheels. And so as we go, I can't get any information. And also notice, I don't control the fence. I don't control the bolt. It's literally just this thing that I have. So we have to change how we're attacking it. And to do that and talk about it, we're going to take apart one of these locks. Okay. So another wonderful thing that they came up with was the fact that, I'm just dropping everything. It has been a bad day. One thing that they came up with, besides keeping the fence from riding the wheels, was those contact points. So on the Sentry safe, you know how that we had a range of 5 numbers? One of the reasons is because the contact points between the wheels, when they would touch, they're really thick. So you touch on one side, you touch on the other side, you have this big gap on which one wheel cannot contain a number. So you know that you can just jump these numbers because they have to make the gate wide enough to accommodate for that. To take care of that problem, what they ended up doing was something really genius, actually. So if you look at this wheel here, wow, I'm way too close. The contact point is that little protrusion up on the wheel that I kind of just moved. Did you all see that? So they made them so they could pivot, and they pivot the width of the contact point so that really it's the center of this space right here will always align with the center of that space on another wheel. That way you can use way more numbers. And by using more numbers, you get more combinations and you get more precision. So they've made it so that they have more numbers, more combinations, more entropy. They made it so you cannot touch the wheel pack, so you don't get the chatter from spinning the wheel and then forcing the fence in. And they also made it so that you don't control the fence at all. You can't force it to do anything. So how do these things work? Well, you put in your combination, and then when you're done, you line it up to wherever your safe manufacturer has decided the nose should be, right there. You see if we had all the gates aligned, that nose would drop right into that cam. So it drops into that cam, and then you turn to the right, and the combination dial becomes the lever that pulls the bolt. Because that'll fall all the way down, you kick it over, it pulls, the bolt moves. So what we have to do is figure out a way to make that particular problem or those changes work for us to give us information. Now, I really like working with the people that I'm talking with and helping you guys learn at the same time, besides just yelling at you or speaking at you. Does anybody see where we could start getting information from this lock, now that they kind of took the entire old way out? Any guesses? He knows, so he's being quiet. You can speak up if you want, because nobody's saying anything. Yeah. Okay. Contact points. So as you see right where I'm sitting right now, the nose has actually come down just a little bit, and I'm moving it right there. You see that I'm moving the nose? So I can actually feel that the nose wants to move at that point. We call that a contact point. You go the other direction, we call that a contact point. Now remember with the original one, I said that I'd put that barbecue skewer on so I could see the change in depth. Well, at this point right now, and I really wish I could show you, but it's really hard with these things to show you that. What's happening is when it's in the cam, the fence is actually sitting on the wheel because it would have to fall into the gate to go all the way down. So right now, this is the only point while we're trying to crack the safe that we actually get the information about the wheels and the gates right here, which on these dials and most dials is 0. You usually go back to 0. That's where the cam will let you drop down. So this makes it really fun, where with the original one, you would find a gate, and then you would move, pick up a wheel, try to find a gate, and then you'd go back to that first number that you had, so you can check the change of depth. Well, now you kind of have to do that here. So what we end up doing to crack this is we're going to have to investigate the wheels, go back to 0, and check the depth. And so you do that all by looking at the dial numbers. So how you would normally do it, actually we'll turn it this way so you can kind of, why not? We'll just do it this way. No, I won't. I don't care right now. Okay. So the very first thing that you do, and I'm going to have to change this thing so you can see my pad. So this is where it gets complicated. Who likes math? One guy shakes his hand like this. I love math. Who's a visual kind of person? Okay, good. You'll like this then. So how I do it and how most everybody, I don't know if there's any other way. Have you ever seen anybody use something besides a graph? Okay, good, because I can't think of a better way. Is to use, what? That's what robbers do, and card counters, because they're the only ones that can do it. Okay, so what you do, and so we saw that there's contact points. If you want me to show you some of this stuff on the lock, just let me know. But I'm going to kind of play theater of the mind at the moment, because I didn't want to make a slide where I could change this all the time, so I used paper, because I'm old school. Okay, so what you need to do is you need to start keeping track of those contact points. The wider they are apart in your numbers, the higher that nose is, which means the fence is riding high, and you want the fence to ride low. So where I start is, let's make you guys all spin around and make people sick. I will show this to you right now. Okay, cool. So this is how I map it out, and that is really wiggly. I apologize. I was not that prepared, I guess. Oh, you should take a picture of it. Oh, hold that right there. Yes, move it to the left. No, not other way, then up. Perfect. Oh, it's like backwards. It's like a mirror. Can I flip that somehow? Anybody know? Cheese. Okay. I actually apologize. I didn't even think about the fact that, what did you do? Oh, let's do this. You're going to see all my pictures. And it's being recorded. Oh my goodness. You're fine. I don't really care. If I have pictures on here, I'd be surprised, actually. Besides that, apparently that one didn't work either. Wonderful. On the photo booth? You're amazing. Thank you. And it looks like it's the right way around. Oh, you're such a good person. All right. Okay. So this is my normal layout. So how it works, and I wish I could kind of point things out, so I'm going to try to be really descriptive for anybody that's watching this video and help you guys kind of follow. In the top left-hand corner, you can see that there's a 0, and then coming down vertically, there's a dash. Go down to the second one where it says RC. That is where I write the number for the right contact point. And so what we're going to do is when we set, this is called an all-wheel graph. So you're just going to spin you're going to spin the lock like crazy. That's going to pick up all 3 wheels. And so I'm going to move all 3 wheels every time, the entire time, while I'm graphing the very first set. Is everybody good with that? Cool. So we're going to go to 0, which we're going to go across vertically. We're going to move all the wheels to 0. And then we're going to go back to 0, but we're already there. And we're going to measure the contact points. And we're going to figure out that range that we've got. So you go to the right contact point, which we'll say on this one is like a 6. And then we're going to go to the left contact point, and we'll say that it's like, 98, okay? So the left contact point is going to be graphed down on the bottom. And now I feel really stupid that I didn't make a slide of this. I apologize. Because I'm going to take another picture in a little second. Unless you want to come and hold a thing still for me, AV. I should really learn your name. What's your name? Kenneth? Tyler? Wow, that was off. Thank you, Tyler. If you start getting sick, people, let me know. So you've got 6, and you have 98. So what we're going to do is make a scale. So here I usually will go 1 up and 1 down. Everybody following that? Oh, we're going to have to take pictures. Now it's upside down. Good job, Tyler. But I think they understand that. I'm going to do one more line with theoretical what it could be. You'll understand what it means, and then I won't make you guys look at this again. Okay, so I now know that the contact point normally starts at 0, at 6, and then goes to the left-hand side at 98. So I make sure that I pick up all the wheels, and I move to 5. And then I measure it, and I see where the right contact point is. Now, I do these in fourths, is how I normally measure. I go to the closest fourth, because that's what graph paper will let me fit. So if it was 6.5, I would come up, there's 6, 6.25, 6.5, and I'd mark a little dot right there. And I do the same with this down here. I don't know why it would get bigger. Let's just say it gets bigger. It's a really bad wheel, because I'm not thinking very hard. And so that's 98.5. Okay, now we can kill the little wonderful thing. If you'll just click the picture again so there's something up, you can kill the slides if you want, until I start taking things apart again. All right. He's going to love me by the end of this. And just so you know, this is the first time I've ever presented. That's why this is pretty bad. Anyway, so right here, you're going to mark that all the way down through back to 0. And so what you're going to start seeing is you're going to start seeing spikes and dips within your graph. And that's what starts to indicate numbers for you, spikes and dips. So as you start seeing that the right contact point gets closer to the center of your range, this would be a dip on the right contact points. Oh, I want this picture up right here. There we go. Even though I should probably draw it. Okay, so as the numbers start to head down on the right contacts, and they start to head up on the left contacts, you know that you're actually getting narrower and narrower. So when you have a valley on your right and a peak on your left that are near each other, that is a great indicator that you have found a gate in that position. Now, the next part that's really hard is to understand where on the wheel that's going to be. And so that's when we do something called a high-low test. I'm just going to walk you through it really quick, because some of you look kind of bored. So a high-low test, I usually start with a low test. And what you're going to do is you're going to say, yeah, I think this is where the gate is. And you have the measure of the contact point, its width, and those types of things. So you're going to end up spinning your wheels, and so you're going to spin them in a very specific way. So the very first point, and I wrote this down to make sure that I didn't say it wrong. And if you want to write this down, it'd probably be helpful. So the very first thing we're going to do is make sure that the last wheel ends up being 10 numbers, I guess, 10 degrees, 10 steps. I like to go like 5, really, because it's closer to 10/4, or not even that. But anyway, so you're going to try to go higher than the number that you think it is. You go higher than the number you think it is, so you're going to turn 4 times, because it's not like your high school combination lock. That will pick up all 4. 1 time picks up the first, and the second, and the third, because of the cam. So it's like there's 4 wheels. Anyway, so you're going to spin it 4 times, and you're going to go under the number by 10 that you want to test, that you think is the gate number. So go under by 10. Then you're going to spin it 3 times and stop on the number that you think it is. And I'll actually show you why. No, I got to set up the camera again. Okay, anyway. Man, I feel like a noob right now. Does anybody want to tell me that I'm doing like a slightly good job so I don't get really nervous? I like him. He's very helpful. Thank you. Okay, so basically, I know. I just didn't want to make you guys feel like you were going through space for a second, because that actually makes me really sick when people do that. Okay. It's military grade. It's fine. Oh, it really is. Like it's like, Harrison Ford. It can survive a nuclear blast in a refrigerator. Military grade fridge. Oh, that's a picture too. How do we get out of the picture? Whoever said that really cool. Click on the camera on the bottom. Oh, somebody owns a Mac and uses it for photos. I use it for a terminal. Okay. So here, and it's going to be slightly difficult to see, but the very first time I'm turning all the way around, only the cam is moving. So I said you have to spin it 4 times, right? So only the cam's moving. That was 1 rotation. Now we have the first wheel moving. I'm going to go 180 degrees. I'm going to pick up the second wheel. So it's the 3rd time I've gone, and then a 4th wheel. So what happens is I'm going to go to that number that's 10 under, and then I'm going to go back 3, which will pick up the cam to the first wheel to the second wheel. And then I'm going to stop there on the number that we think the gate is. So what that has done is it set 2 to the number I think there's a gate and 1 that there isn't. Now I'm going to measure the contact points and write that down. I then go to the next step, and that's going to be kind of left, right, left, which is the normal way we do it. But then when I go left, I'm going to go to the correct number, right to the incorrect number, and then left to the correct number again. And so, if this makes sense, we're going to go left the 4, leave the last wheel at what we think the correct number is. Then we're going to go to the wrong number by turning to the right 3. Then we're going to go turn to the left twice, as this gets repetitive, to the correct number again. And what we're doing is we're isolating the wheels. So the very first way that we did it, where it was 4 times and then 3, we isolated the 3rd wheel to test the 3rd wheel. The second time we did it, when we went 4, 3, 2, 1, basically, we isolated the second wheel. Now the last one is just really easy. You're going to pick them all up. You're going to set them to the correct number, and then you're going to just go around once to the incorrect number, and then back to 0. And that's isolating the first wheel. Now, the reason that we do that is because as we check the the depth on those contact points, we're going to see that one of them got really big compared to the others. And by really big, I mean like half of a number. Sorry, I exaggerate sometimes. And what that shows us is that for some reason, that wheel was the one that was controlling the contact points. So now we say, great, say it was like 34 was the number that we were testing. Great, now we know that the third wheel, or the one that was controlling that gate, has that number in the combination. Does that make sense? Yeah, so this gets really tedious over a really long period of time because you always have to move by a little bit, and then you have to check contact points, and you have to graph the whole thing. And so you're like, yay, we have a number. Yeah, except for now you get to do a whole nother graph. You have to do 3 graphs, and you kind of do the same thing, except for what you can do is stop worrying about one of the numbers. So what you're going to do is you're going to set one wheel, you're going to set your known wheel, if it was the second wheel, to the right number, and then you're going to set the next wheel, and you're going to test. And you're going to graph that all out, all the way through. Does anybody actually want me to go through how you do that? Because it gets really long and really boring. If you don't want me to do it, raise your hand. Wow, there's a lot of you people that want me to do it or aren't paying attention. All right, cool. Let's see what time we've got, because they gave me an hour when I didn't ask for it. Oh, it's been a half an hour, yay. Luckily I brought other things to talk about. Okay, so this takes a long time, and depending on how well they're manufactured, which I actually learned today that Big Red does a lot of work. That's who made the wheels I just showed you. That's why they're red. So, Big Red. They actually do, wow, I sound like I've been smoking for 20 years. They actually do a really good job on trying to keep their wheels precise, which means the closer they are in precision, the smaller you're going to see changes within the contact points and within depths and things of that nature. So it makes it harder, and what it really does is it makes it take a lot longer. The longer that a safe lock can withstand somebody manipulating it, the better rating they get from Underwriters Laboratories, the more they can charge you, and the more people think they're awesome, I guess, unless you're Century Safe. Thank you for laughing. That made me feel good. Yes, yes. Buy Century Safes and give them as presents to people that you know have lots of money where you visit their house often. All right. You're welcome. Actually, I should probably use that once I open this one so it's easier to point at things. So they were like, okay, what can we do more? And honestly, at this point, because people wanted to rush, they started doing a lot more destructive attacks. But destructive attacks are really hard to demo and make a lot of noise, and they're really expensive for me because I'm going to ruin a whole bunch of bits and things to try to do it. So I like you guys, but I don't love you guys. So we're going to talk about manipulation a little bit more. So how they decided to make it easier to manipulate, to get rid of clandestine things, is they came up with the Group 1. So the Group 1 is a modification, not a complete overwrite of how the mechanism works, where they kind of went with the Group 2. They added the nose, the cam, they changed the way the fence works, those types of things. What they did is they decided to make these a lot harder. And the funny thing is, the only reason why this guy right here even came to this presentation is because I told him I wouldn't take this apart for him down in the lock community, because he really wanted to see the inside. Am I right? Yeah, see, totally right. Okay, so Group 1s. Group 1s are crazy weird. They feel disgusting when you use them. They feel like they're broken, and they're not. And we're going to go over why. Okay, so this is the inside of a Group 1, and this is the backside of a Group 1. So this actually defeats quite a few things, and I'll tell you why these are kind of set up the way that they are right now. Oh, I can't talk. Make sure that doesn't turn off. One of the more common destructive attacks that they would do on Group 2s is they would just pull the dial off, rip the shaft out, which strips the cam, and then they just shove stuff in there, and they try to blow the back off of the lock. They blow the back off the lock, the wheels fall out, door opens. You know, it's like if you just drill a lock on a door, you just blow it up. So, actually, I'll show you right now on this one too, because I forgot to talk about it. The awesome thing they came up with was this little guy right here. Can you guys see that little lever? Wonderful little lever. What it does is it's spring-loaded, so when the lid is down, it lifts up from that hole inside of the bolt. But if you ever blow the back off, it falls into that hole inside of the bolt. Bolt doesn't move. Everything fell apart, and now you can't open it at all without drilling it or cutting it open. So if you really don't like people and you don't care to have what's inside, just make them spend a couple $1,000s by blowing the back off of their safe lock. I do not condone that action. I'm just letting you know that's a possibility in your life. Okay, so let's go back to this group one. So one of the worst things that I hate about this group one, I've never been able to open this group one without knowing the combination. And it's how this cam works. So this cam is a two-part cam. So it has a fence. You can see the fence geometry is different, which makes the contact points a lot harder to read. But as I turn this, you're going to hear a wonderful noise. You hear that? There's two of them. And the reason it does that is because underneath that cam is a spring-loaded ball bearing. And this cam is split into two parts. This golden part, the brass part, moves continuously. It just keeps moving no matter what. But the black part behind it, and I'll pull apart this cam in a second after I show you the other stuff because it's really messy. The black part behind it actually ends up being held in place right there. And so what it does is it increases the friction like crazy on this wheel, making it harder to feel when things happen, and you have to overcome that to get it to snap back. And then it snaps back, and then it throws off where you're at, and it's super annoying, to be honest. It makes it hard to read contact points. It makes it hard to listen to it, even though I've never found listening to a lock like they do in the movies to help me in any way, shape, or form. Have you known anybody to do that? Yeah, well, I just feel the contact points. Yeah. Maybe if you have no sensitivity in your fingers, listening to it's a really good, I don't know. It's never been like beneficial to me. But this makes it worse. So you would never want to do it anyway. The other thing that they do with these group ones, which is really fun with this guy here, the wheel pack is now separate from that shaft. And the way that it makes contact and creates the tension and everything is right here in the center. It's spring-loaded. That pushes against the cam. It actually makes it so that the tension as you spin is variable, even without the spring-loaded cam. So now you're always varying your tension as you spin it. It's flicking itself around and going crazy. And the wheel pack hates you. So you pick them up the same. But what they also did is they run the wheels backwards. This is the one that touches the cam, and it goes backwards, which can throw you off quite a bit, actually. At least it does for me. Now, I said that this one's a Group 1R, right? That's because as things got crazy, and they started making these Group 1s that you can't hear, you can't feel, you can't really get much information out of with a lot of time. I think this one's over 120 straight man-hours of manipulation before it should be opened, is the UL, the Underwriter's Laboratory rating for this lock, which is why I'm never going to open it, even though I keep trying. So they're like, what can we do? How can we end up figuring it out? And it's not the most clandestine thing in the world, but they started taking x-rays of the entire safe so that they could see where the gates were on the wheel pack. I'm like, okay, like no one's carrying around a portable x-ray unless it's James Bond, and it's probably in his watch. So what they started doing is they started making Delrin or other type of plastic special wheels on the wheel pack. And we're about to open this one up after I do my special magic trick where the wheel pack moves on its own. Okay. So as you can see with this wheel, they still have that same moving contact where they touch so that we get a lot more accuracy. But you don't see any false gates, just like you didn't on the big red, because there's no point because the fence doesn't ride. But what they have on this one is if you turn it around, do you see all those wonderful little ridges? They are the exact size as the same gate, and they're more dense. So what ends up, when you x-ray this, it just ends up looking like a big gear. Yeah, he just starts laughing. Yeah, that's pretty much it. Everywhere there is a gate. Everywhere. And they have it on all of them. And they are so sure about how wonderful that this works with that plastic is if you look really close. Can you guys see what's on the front face of that? Can you guys see it? Or do I have to like pass it around and show you? There's numbers. And there's a little niche right here right now, right there on the wheel, that points to the number that this wheel is. This is 92. Yeah. Their number's 92 on this lock. There's like, we'll even tell you, it doesn't even matter. With the other locks, you have to have a special key to change the combination. With this one, you need a 3-year-old and a screwdriver, and you get the most random combinations ever. So that's what they started doing, is they started making them more powerful, but in a way making them less complex. Because these are die-pressed and formed, they're actually pretty much the same when it comes to how round they are. The only problem that they present is that they have a lower number of combination opens. A lot lower number. Because there's wear on the wheels and because there's plastic and cast zinc and things of that nature, they will break more often, where the other ones will not. So you're kind of getting a trade-off. But anyway, let's go over this cam really quick because I think you guys will appreciate how it's made. At least I always did. And then we can talk about whatever you want to talk about, actually. If I can get this to come off, because it's really fun. So has anybody not ever cut their nails? I'm just asking because I could use some help. No? I was like, did Travis just stand up in the corner? That might work. I didn't think I would need a blade. Usually my flathead pulls it off, but apparently when I was setting the lock yesterday, I decided to really give it a smack. Awesome. Actually, do you want to try to cut your finger and get it off? No, I'm just kidding. I'll do it. I liked your laugh. That was nice. It's kind of awkward. Like, no, I don't want to hurt myself. Oh, I'm going to hurt myself, though. This feels like it's going to be a bad idea. Okay. We won't show you how that goes in. I will show you if you want to come up after and I have time to pull it apart. Last but not least, right here, if you see that little golden button, that's their blow-off lock right there. That one actually puts, so these group 2s, this one right here, so I'll use the pull-apart one because then it's easier to move the bolt. This group 2 has that little tiny piece of brass that's kind of sitting inside of the hole. So that's like, what? Maybe 1/8 of an inch thick. Oh, well, wide and less thick. There actually are instances where you can get a tool that will go onto the back of that bolt, and you can just start smacking it to try to shear that tooth off. And then you can just pull the bolt back by the little hole, or by the fence, or by whatever. This one, underneath that little button, is a 3/8 inch rod that passes all the way through the bolt. So it ain't moving. So they get pretty crazy in the military. And so that's kind of the evolution of these locks. Now, the last thing that they ever did in the evolution of manipulating locks to try to keep people from manipulating them, when they got rid of the group 1 for the military, they came up with another one that is technically a group 1, but I'd be like, it's a group Omega because I don't think you can do any better. I don't have one. It would cost me like $1,000. And like I said, I like you, but I don't love you guys. That's not true. I'd probably love some of you, especially if my wife made it. I think that's her in the back, maybe. Is that you? Yep, it's her. Okay. So what they did is The slides don't matter right now if you want to switch it. But what they did is they created a manipulated lock that was both electronic and manual. You've probably seen one of these. Yes. So basically what they are, they're mini generators. You start spinning it, it creates enough power to kick itself on. A little like LED screen turns on and starts showing you numbers. As you turn it, the numbers are not in consecutive order. It just shows them to you randomly. And so you spin until you see the number that you need. Then you spin it the other way until you see the number that you need. And then back the other way. And then it decides it's going to open up for you, which is wonderful. The crazy thing is it has a logging system for audits. So you can open it. You can see how many times it opened. You can see how many times somebody spun it without opening it. You can see the last time somebody failed to open it. There's all sorts of like random crazy things that you can do. That one by Underwriters Laboratory is rated at never being able to be manipulated open. Period. No, I haven't actually. I haven't had a chance to look at it yet. Why did something really crazy happen? Did somebody hack it somehow? How'd they hack it? Do you want to come up here and tell me? Oh. That's really sad. Yes. Oh, this is the point where I get like a thermal lance and be like, I hope that they made the steel out of less than what that X10. Or I just get mad and probably hit the X10 with a bat so then they couldn't get in either. Because I'm a little vindictive that way. That or, you know, like poses the repair company that comes to fix it. I don't know, social engineer it somehow, I don't know. Yeah. Honestly, if you want to keep your Sentry safe, because you should manipulate it open. But if you don't, I've opened them with like, well, I've cut through the steel with like screwdrivers and a hammer. Yeah, an angle grinder will cut it right open in like 3 minutes. So yeah, but these other ones, they actually use quite huge, thick steel. Like a bank vault is inches of steel. And they'll do things like put glass panes that are attached to your bolts. And if you're trying to be mean to it, the glass will break, the bolts will kick out. It's permanently locked until someone comes with something to blow it open. Okay, so how many of you guys have been to Europe? How many of you guys feel like Europe is way weirder than America? I do. So, I brought this just in case. I have no clue what time it is. Oh, yeah, 7 minutes. I almost made it in an hour before I had to pull this out. This is the combination for, oh, we did that little mouse clicky thing, magic. This is the combination for a European safe, right there. Yeah. I really feel like when I deal with European safes that we're like in the dark ages, but it feels kind of cool because you're like, I'm opening a castle. Yeah, that's how I feel. I'm going to show you the inside of this just for the fun of it because I told a few people that I'd do it if I had time and because I think it's cool. This is what the inside of a European safe lock looks like. This one came from Germany, which means it's made really well. Okay, so how this works, key goes in, key starts to turn, all of them line up, and the fence goes down. This thing's way easier to open. It takes way less time than a Group 2 lock, just to let you know. If you want to come down to the lockpicking village, since I've opened this and shown it to people, and now if you guys ruin it, I won't be that mad. You can try to pick it. It is not the easiest thing to pick, but it's like picking a safety deposit box, which aren't the easiest, but they're fun. So anyway, I hope you can kind of see this. The presentation was supposed to be both slightly informative on how to open a lock, but more informative on how the ideology of security and how it evolves not just digitally, but also mechanically, and there's just kind of that pattern back and forth of find a vulnerability, find a creative way to protect that vulnerability and not just obscure it. My favorite one out of safe locks that they made the changes to that I really like is actually that cam that I hate. I never would have thought about splitting a cam in half and having it spring load and split itself as you turn and then having it smack around. And so when I got that lock, I was actually quite excited. If you guys want to come and play with the locks after, they're going to be available to spin around down in the lockpicking village as well. Yeah, pretty much that's it. If you guys have any random questions about anything, even if it's about other locks, I can probably answer them. But anybody? Or yeah. Actually, yeah. I was probably like 5, and I saw that stuff in cartoons, and I've always loved spy movies. And when I got old enough that I could afford to buy things on my own, I started doing stuff like that. Eventually, I had a friend that came over to my house, and I didn't know what he did for work, and we were talking about that. And he's like, "What do you do?" I told him I was a computer programmer, and he's like, "I'm a locksmith," and I was like, "You're like my hero." Like, seriously, can you teach me? And he went out to his van, made a few practice locks for me, gave me a set of lockpicks, and started teaching me. And then the safe cracking thing is something I always wanted to do. I was cruising KSL for something, some furniture or something for my wife, and I saw a Sentry Safe for 20 bucks, and they're like, "We don't know the combination." I was like, "This is the chance." And I called my wife, I was like, "Hey, can I have $20 and get you to go down to like Woods Cross?" Why? They're selling a safe and I want it. So she did, and I spent like 3 days ignoring my children, trying to figure out how to do it on my own because I couldn't find any literature. So that's how it started. And now it keeps getting worse because I start buying more and more expensive locks. And I have to feel guilty when eBay packages show up because I didn't talk to my wife. Any other questions? Yeah. That depends on the safe. If it's a gun safe, I don't care how heavy it is. If it can be bolted to something, bolt it to something, because that's irresponsible if you don't. If it's a Sentry safe, just throw it in the garbage can and go buy another safe. But no, there's definitely portable ones. Quick tip. Oh, actually, it's over. Down at the Los Santos Challenge, they have that safe, and you get points for getting the stuff out of it. It's just getting the stuff. I just picked up the whole safe and walked out with it, and he gave me the points. So no, you do not have to bolt it down, but you should. But yeah, the heavier safes, they're like hundreds of thousands of pounds, and so no. But if it's boltable, that usually means the manufacturer also recommends that you bolt it. Yeah. But if you lose the combination, you're going to have to go through the front of it. Or if you cement it in like a floor safe, you're going to have to go through the front of it or break up the cement. Any other questions? Yeah. It depends on what you mean by medium difficulty. A group 2 can take me like 40 hours. Here, I'll show you something. Group 2. This guy right here, or actually, I don't care. There's people watching, whatever. This thing right here. Okay, so this is a Sergeant Greenleaf 8088 Padlock. It works like a Group 2. The only difference is that it doesn't have, you actually get to control the fence on this one. And you control it by pulling up on the shackle itself. So it is a combination of a Group 2, because it works with a cam, and you have to graph it, and that Sentry Safe, where you can kind of control it at the same time and kind of get a feel for some things. So, yeah. If you want to practice kind of like medium of the mediums, or actually easy of the mediums, one of these is a great way to get started. Plus, you can carry it around with you everywhere. And like you could probably keep track of your graphs and stuff on a digital device. I just like to use paper because when you use paper, I can tape it to the safe and leave it there and come back. Where, like, if I'm using my iPad Pro, I have to go find my iPad Pro. If it dies, I can't work on the safe. So, yeah, I can take it. Like, it really depends on the UL rating, but I'm not that great. So, like, a 20-hour will probably take me 40 hours because I'm not perfect. Not even close. Anything else? Yeah. All the time. That is actually one of the difficult things. It depends on how much information there is. You can actually look at dials sometime and kind of figure out the maker. Like this Mossler right here, that dial configuration, what it looks like, is unique to them, and it's within a certain time period. So you can say, okay, it's this on Mossler. Let's see if we can find a safe that's like this or a floor safe from Mossler in that time period. Another great way that people don't use a lot of the time is if you can find any other information written on the safe, you can try to look up patents. Yeah, a lot of people won't do a patent search, but you can look up patents, and they usually detail how the lock works as well. So if there's anything hidden in there that will screw you up, you can usually see it. So that's usually where I go, so a lot of Googling. You're going to end up reading a lot of really old scanned PDFs, usually. Sometimes I'll even end up reading old, like, Sears catalogs, like digitized ones, to get any more information that I can about the safe. Yeah. Pretty much that's what I do with it, yeah. Yes. Okay, so I wouldn't, I don't like doing videos because videos get really, like they'll outpace you and it can be really frustrating going back and back and back. But I could actually probably send this to you if you're really interested. There is a guy that is a pretty great safe cracker that came up with safe cracking for everyone, and I didn't even know about it for the longest time because after I had got the first one, which I just tried to figure out on my own, and after I'd gotten that one, I went and bought like a group 2 and took it apart and tried to figure out how you would start to figure it out. And so then I just kind of went with that, and then I saw somebody talk about graphing once on a YouTube video, and I didn't quite understand it, so I just kind of tried to figure that on my own, and it started to make sense. But this one, that PDF, he sells the book as an ebook, but he's also been known to say, just find the PDF somewhere on the internet. Like, he doesn't care. But it's called Safe Cracking for Everyone. And I've looked through that one recently before doing this to make sure that I was kind of on the up and up. I didn't know about high testing before I'd read it. I always just did low testing because I didn't think high testing would matter. But it can actually help verify things a little bit more. And he takes you step by step through how he does it and will tell you about like all will graphs and those types of things. So you can go over it and like walk through it slowly at your own pace, which I prefer. You can just keep referencing it or print it out and look at it over and over again while you do the step. So yeah, I definitely encourage you guys to look at that one. That's all about like group 2s. Anyone else? Okay, so I get all of my locks off of eBay. Usually it's because so there's this really big trend to move into the electronic lock space for like gun safes and things. I don't like it. Electronic locks have a lot more that can go wrong with them over time than mechanical ones can. And I like the idea that if I couldn't find batteries or ran out of power, I don't like that I couldn't open my safe. But a lot of people are modifying their safes and getting them replaced. So a lot of those locks are ending up on eBay, so you can get them really, really cheap. Yeah, they just take the whole thing off. So this just comes off the door on both sides, and then they put the new ones on both sides and hook it up, and it's done. So that's where I get my locks. Group 1s are a little bit harder to find, but they're actually usually really cheap because nobody really wants to use them on anything. Like I think this one was 25 bucks. But it used to like guard top secret documents. Now it gets torn apart in front of strangers. So that, and then these ones, they were just lock mounts that were made by, or just a locksmith company. It's like M&B Locks or something like that. But now Marv the Great, he actually put together an STL for 3D printing these. So I would actually go towards talking to him because these cost like 12 bucks, and I think on Thingiverse you can get a whole bunch of these printed and shipped to your house for less than that per piece. So that's where I end up getting those. But the ones that we have done in Lockpicking Village, the ones that are red, that's what Marv printed. That's that STL, that model. So I would do that. So surf eBay, grab one, get one of those little stands. Yeah. Good. Thanks for coming. It would have been really sad if it was just those two.